The winds whispered through the violet grass as Captain Elena Voss stood at the edge of the battlefield. The air buzzed with tension, but she felt a strange sense of calm amidst the clamor. Just days ago, she had lost good friends to the ongoing conflict between humans and the Zephyrians. Now she struggled to find balance, her thoughts churning like a tempest. "Captain Voss, the status report is in," said a voice behind her. Lieutenant Mark Gentry, tall and broad-shouldered, approached with a datapad in hand, his brow furrowed with concern. Elena turned, steeling herself for the numbers that would confirm what she already feared. "Let me guess, it's not good?" Casualties are rising on both sides. The Zephyrian formations have regrouped in the eastern quadrant. "They're planning something, I can feel it," Mark replied, glancing toward the distant horizon. "Great. Just what we need," Elena said, running a hand through her dark hair. "Have we received any communications from their command?" "None, ma'am. It's all silence from their end." Mark sighed, frustration clear in his voice. "But we can't underestimate them. They may be waiting for the right moment to strike." Elena crossed her arms, thoughts racing. Or they're planning something entirely different. It's not like them to sit idle. As the two stood in contemplation, the landscape shifted around them. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that danced eerily over the battlefield. There was something almost beautiful about the chaos, but that beauty was cut short by the sound of an approaching ship. Moments later, a Zephyrian vessel descended from the skies, sleek and graceful against the backdrop of war. Elena felt an unexpected flutter in her chest as she recognized its emblem, the insignia of Kale, the Zephyrian diplomat known for his calm demeanor. "Here's an idea," Mark suggested, a cynical smile creeping onto his face. "Maybe they've come to surrender?" Elena shot him a pointed look. "Don't get your hopes up. They're probably just scouting us. Or worse. Or maybe," Mark continued, "they're here to offer a truce. It's not too late to save lives, you know." Before she could respond, the ship touched down, its landing gear gracefully extending to the ground. The ramp lowered and a figure stepped out, a tall Zephyrian with cobalt skin and eyes like molten silver, Kale himself. "Captain Voss," he called out, his voice soothingly melodic even across the open space. "Kale," Elena replied, stepping forward, putting her soldier's stance in check. "What brings you here?" "I've come to speak," he said, glancing back at the ship momentarily before returning his attention to her. "But not about war." "Then what?" Mark interjected, his skepticism evident. "You're risking a lot by showing up here." Kale regarded them calmly, unfazed. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe there was a chance to change this outcome. And you think your people would be open to negotiation?" Elena challenged, folding her arms. "Negotiation is less about the people and more about the hearts of those leading them. Just as you carry their hopes, I carry mine." Kale stepped closer, intrigue dancing in his silver eyes. "I propose a temporary cessation of hostilities." "For what? A picnic? How do we know you're not just stalling for time?" Mark scoffed, glancing at Elena for support. "You don't," Kale replied simply, his expression unyielding. "But nothing will change if blood continues to flow. I'm not asking for blind trust, only an opportunity to speak." Elena remained silent, considering his proposal. She sensed the sincerity in his words, compelling her to reflect on the cycle of violence that had spiraled out of control. "What's in it for you?" she finally asked, intrigued but wary. "A chance for peace, perhaps?" Kale replied, his voice earnest. "But I hold hope that together we can create a path forward." "I'll admit, that's not something we hear often from your kind," Mark countered, his voice still tinged with suspicion. Kale only smiled as if their skepticism amused him. "Perhaps we should change the narrative then. Let us meet tomorrow at dawn in the neutrality of the lowlands." Elena considered his proposal, her thoughts swirling. She had grown weary of the endless battles, of losing friends and burying memories beneath the weight of warfare. What would that meeting look like? She inquired. It could simply be two people, masters of their respective fates, Kale proposed. Or perhaps a negotiation between larger forces. But it starts with the willingness to listen. "For every step forward, we've often gone 2 steps back," Mark added, a glance shared with Elena indicating his skepticism. "Then let us join forces for one day. Let's take that step together and see where it leads." Kale extended his hand toward her, the gesture disarming and earnest. Elena hesitated, feeling the weight of responsibility heavy in her heart. This was war, after all. But there was something in Kale's eyes, an echo of the humanity she had begun to recognize despite their differences. "All right, I accept," she said, eventually reaching for his hand. The moment their palms met, she felt a strange energy pulsating through them, strong enough to shift her perspective entirely. "Tomorrow at dawn," then Kale replied, releasing her grip. He stepped back, giving her space, yet there was no retreating from the invisible lines they had just crossed. "Until then, I hope you'll consider our fates more intertwined than you once thought." As Kale returned to his ship, Elena felt a sinking realization that this was a pivotal moment. "Mark," she said, turning to her lieutenant, "do you think it's possible?" "Anything is possible," Mark replied, still skeptical but clearly intrigued. "But hope can be a fragile thing." "We'll find out soon enough," Elena murmured, watching the Zephyrian ship ascend into the twilight. Underneath the weight of conflict and uncertainty, a flicker of possibility ignited in her heart, a desire for something different, something beyond battle. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to redefine what victory meant under these strange skies. Chapter 2: An Unexpected Encounter. Dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Elena Voss stood at the edge of the neutral zone, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and doubt. She could hear the faint whir of ships overhead as they patrolled the skies. The agreement with Kale had felt like a leap into the unknown, and now waiting only added to her anxiety. "Do you think he'll actually show?" Lieutenant Mark Gentry asked as he paced beside her, his brow creased. "He said he would," Elena replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "But with these things, who knows?" Mark stopped to peer at her. "What if it's just a trick? We can't let our guard down." "Maybe," Elena admitted, glancing at the expanse of the lowlands. "But if we keep thinking like that, we'll never find out what could happen." "Well, I'm not here for any surprises," Mark said, shaking his head. "Just promise me that if things start to go sideways, we'll bail." Before Elena could respond, a flash of movement caught her eye. There it was, the Zephyrian ship descending gracefully onto the open ground. Her breath hitched as Kale stepped out, his form framed against the rising sun, looking every bit the striking diplomat. "Showtime," Mark muttered, his voice low. Kale approached, his expression serious but not unfriendly. "Captain Voss?" "Lieutenant Gentry." He nodded to each of them. "Thank you for meeting me." Elena cleared her throat, forging a calm demeanor. "We're here. Let's get started." "Agreed," Kale replied, glancing around. "I wanted to choose a neutral ground for a reason. This setting allows us to speak openly, away from the chaos of our respective forces." "Charming," Mark interjected, his tone skeptical. "But how do we know this isn't some kind of setup?" "A valid concern," Kale acknowledged, his demeanor remaining level-headed. "That's why I brought something." He reached into his pocket and revealed a small, shimmering device. "This is a communication beacon. It'll allow us to connect beyond this ground, ensuring that both sides know we are talking, not plotting." Elena leaned in, intrigued. "You think they'll agree with your terms?" "I cannot speak for my people, but I can vouch for my intentions," Kale said earnestly. "I want to foster a dialogue, even if it's challenging." Mark crossed his arms, his skepticism still palpable. "And what exactly do you wish to discuss?" "To start, I want to clarify what has led us to this catastrophic state. I believe misinterpretation and lack of understanding fueled this conflict." "There's a war going on, Kale," Mark replied sharply. "It's not simply about misunderstanding." "I am aware. But might I argue that the solution lies in addressing the root of the problem?" Kale gestured toward the horizon. "We need to consider what we truly want. Is it power, or is it peace?" "From where I stand, power often dictates peace," Mark shot back. Elena interjected, "What do you envision as an alternative?" Kale studied her for a moment. "A new understanding. Perhaps a treaty that favors cooperation rather than domination. But first, we must allow ourselves to explore that possibility, even if it feels uncomfortable." "A treaty?" Mark scoffed. "Do you really think our commands would go for that? They want to win, not negotiate." "Elena, what if we did explore this option?" Kale's eyes sparkled with intensity. "What if we could present them with something unexpected?" "Like what?" Mark asked, his arms still crossed, but his defiance wavering slightly. "I propose a joint mission," Kale offered. "An objective that serves both of our interests. It could be anything from joint resource exploration to a task that addresses mutual threats." "Mutual threats?" Elena asked, intrigued despite herself. "Yes. We both know the galaxy is teeming with challenges beyond our current conflict. Pirate factions, rogue elements, you name it. We could redirect our focus towards something more constructive. Together." Mark was silent for a moment, clearly considering Kale's proposition. "And how would that shift power dynamics?" "What's your play?" "Simply put, I aim to shift the conversation from war to collaboration," Kale replied. Imagine both of our civilizations united for a common goal. Elena watched Kale's intensity as he spoke. There was something magnetic about his vision. And what happens if this joint mission fails? She pressed. What would you and your people say then? That is a risk we must take, but I believe the greater risk lies in doing nothing, Kale stated firmly. You could be right, she admitted, glancing at Mark, whose expression had softened slightly. But then again, how can we trust each other? The very foundation of this conflict is built on distrust. Kale stepped closer, sincerity radiating from him. Sometimes trust must start with a leap of faith. If you value the words I say, I hope they'll guide you. If we are to move forward, both sides need to commit fully. A handshake can go a long way. Mark spoke up again, his earlier skepticism fading. So, you're suggesting we fight pirates together? I suggest we confront the enemy as allies. Prove to our people that we are capable of cooperation. Elena considered the possibilities. It's risky, but maybe, just maybe, it could work. Kale nodded. I will present the idea to my council. But I need your word that you will consider it too. Work with me on a proposal. What do you think, Mark? She asked, glancing at her lieutenant, gauging his reaction. I can't say this doesn't sound intriguing, he replied, his tone thoughtful. But we have to make sure we're prepared for backlash from our own ranks. I understand, Kale replied. But I assure you it might also inspire change. What if our commanders refuse? Mark pressed. Then we meet again. We analyze our next move together, Kale said, unflinching. Elena felt tension in the air, a strange energy that stirred her resolve. Okay, let's go for it. We'll prepare a proposal based on what we discussed. If nothing else, we owe it to our people to at least attempt this. Kale grinned, a genuine smile breaking through the layer of tension. Then we have a plan. As they walked back toward their respective ships, Elena felt a sense of purpose bubbling within her. The prospect of collaboration sparked an unfamiliar excitement, and yet uncertainty loomed over her head like a storm cloud. Still, the image of a future beyond moonlit dances and empty war cries flickered to life. Here, in the fading dawn, they were not simply enemies but two forces considering a different way. Together, they stood on the brink of something entirely new, bound not by conflict but by a fragile possibility. Chapter 3, The Dance Begins. The sun peeked through the jagged cliffs of the neutral zone, illuminating the landscape with a warm glow. Captain Elena Voss was still grappling with the weight of yesterday's conversation as she entered the command center aboard the S.S. Valor. Her mind buzzed with thoughts of Kale and the prospect of uniting their forces. Morning, Captain. Lieutenant Mark Gentry adjusted his uniform, already at his station, surrounded by screens flashing status reports. What's the plan for today? Today? Elena leaned against the wall, her fingers drumming anxiously against the metal surface. Today, we work on that proposal for the joint mission. Mark raised an eyebrow. You're serious about this? More serious than I've been in a while, she replied. We need to act fast before either side gets cold feet. I hope you know what you're doing, Mark said, still skeptical. This feels reckless. We're talking about combining resources with our enemies. We've already been enemies long enough, Elena countered. If we want to stop the fighting, we have to find common ground. Kale may be our best shot. Just then, their comm system buzzed, drawing their attention. Captain Voss, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian command ship. Came the voice of their communications officer, Sergeant Thompson. Elena straightened, heart racing. Patch it through. A holographic image flickered to life, revealing Kale, looking as composed and dignified as ever. Captain Voss, Lieutenant Gentry. I hope I'm not interrupting your thoughts on our discussion. Not at all, Elena replied, her heart pounding. We were just about to dive into the details. Excellent, Kale nodded, the faintest hint of a smile on his face. I bring news. My council is intrigued by the idea of collaboration, but they require a more detailed plan. What would our objectives entail? Right? Mark chimed in, leaning closer to the screen. What exactly are you thinking? A joint operation against pirate factions, Kale articulated. We could utilize each of our strengths, stealth technology from Zephyrian ships, and our tactical strategies. Together, we would be formidable. Elena felt a flicker of excitement. That could work, but we need specifics. What's the first step? We should start with information gathering. Tactical reconnaissance would be essential. My people have advanced surveillance technology that could help locate pirate bases, Kale suggested. All right, and we'll deploy our teams for a ground operation. If we find any hidden installations, we'll need to act quickly, Elena added, a plan beginning to take shape in her mind. Then let's draft it up, Mark said, enthusiasm breaking through his earlier reservations. We can outline our collective strengths and how they complement each other. This could be the turning point. Exactly, Kale responded, his demeanor shifting to serious. But we must also prepare for potential pushback from our commanders. This is uncharted territory. Elena nodded. We have to address that heat-in. We need a strong case for why collaboration benefits both sides. Our losses are mounting, and if they see the potential gains, then they may be more receptive, Mark finished. Let's get to work. Hours passed as the trio collaborated, each contributing insights that gradually shaped their proposal into a coherent plan. As they worked, the initial wariness faded, replaced by an unexpected camaraderie. They shared stories, laughter, and frustrations over late-night shifts and the nuisances of command. Can you believe how many ships we've lost in this conflict? Mark remarked, rubbing his temples. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. Elena sighed. It feels like we're sacrificing everything for a war that seems never-ending. We can't let our fears dictate our future. Wise words, Kale said, genuine respect in his voice. You possess a strength I have often admired. Your spirit is admirable in the face of hardship. Elena felt her cheeks warm slightly at his words. Thank you. But honestly, it's easier to think this way when we're together. I don't feel so alone. I'm glad to hear that, Kale replied, locking eyes with her for a moment. Collaboration has a way of dissolving barriers. The atmosphere in the room shifted, becoming charged with unspoken tension. Mark cleared his throat, breaking the moment. How about we get back to the proposal? We still have a ways to go. As they continued refining their strategy, Elena felt a sense of connection growing, not just with Kale but with the possibilities that lay ahead. Together, they crafted an outline, each detail a stitch in the fragile fabric of their burgeoning alliance. Later that evening, after the proposal was finalized, Elena and Mark made their way to a debriefing session with the fleet command. The atmosphere was palpably tense, charged with apprehension over their new direction. Captain Voss, Commander Alvarez began as they entered the room. I trust you have updates for us concerning the Zephyrians? We do, Elena replied, her voice steady. We propose a joint mission to combat pirate factions. A murmur passed through the room as the other officers exchanged glances. The atmosphere turned skeptical. Commander Alvarez raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we join forces with the enemy? Enemies can become allies in common purpose, Elena stated firmly. We've both lost too much in this conflict. This is an opportunity to shift focus towards something constructive. And if this fails? Alvarez challenged. Then we learn and adapt, Kale interjected smoothly, his presence at her side bolstering her resolve. United, our strengths will multiply. Separately, we remain targets. We can't just surrender our power, Colonel Hargrove spoke up, crossing his arms defensively. We'd be risking everything for a charade. It's not a charade, Elena insisted. It's a chance to redefine our narrative. To instill fear in our enemies, we first have to show that we stand firm together. Exactly, Kale added, determination resonating in his voice. Cooperation is not surrender. It is a strategy that can empower us. As the debate raged on, Elena saw glimmers of belief flicker in the eyes of some of her fellow officers. Perhaps they were ready for this shift after all. Minutes turned to hours as discussions unfolded, yet Elena felt a growing sense of purpose despite the challenges ahead. By the time they reached a tentative agreement to move forward, tired smiles spread across faces. Looks like we did it, Mark said as they exited the meeting. Yourself well today. Your people will trust you moving forward. I hope so, she replied, glancing up at him. But it's going to be a long road. Together, we can endure whatever comes our way. Perhaps we can even celebrate our progress when it's all over, he suggested lightly. Celebrate? Elena raised an eyebrow, chuckling. You mean dance in the middle of the battlefield? Kale chuckled and warmth spread between them, an unspoken bond forming. Why not? Life's too short not to find joy, even amid chaos. In that moment, amidst all the uncertainty of the universe, Elena felt a flicker of optimism. Maybe this partnership would allow them to dance a new tune, one that echoed with unity rather than division. And if all went well, perhaps one day they would find the chance to dance together for real. Chapter 4, A Moment of Connection. The dawn of the next day arrived, casting a pale light over the S.S. Valor. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation as Elena Voss paced the command center. She could hardly contain her mounting excitement mixed with anxiety. "All right, everyone," Elena said, gathering her team. Lieutenant Mark Gentry stood by a console, flipping through data reports. "Today is the day we put our plan into action. We've decided on areas to target based on the intel Kale provided. Let's finalize our approach before the briefing." "Let's hope this intel is solid," Mark replied, leaning over the console, his expression serious. "If we go in half-cocked, we could end up in a worse situation." "Trust me, Kale knows what he's talking about," Elena said, waving away his concerns as much for herself as for him. "This is our shot to prove that cooperation works. Besides, the sooner we act, the better." The comm unit crackled to life, and Kale's familiar face materialized in the holographic display. "Captain Voss, Lieutenant Gentry. I hope I'm not interrupting any crucial preparations." "Not at all," Elena responded, stepping closer. "We were just about to finalize our approach." "Excellent. I wanted to discuss the intel we've received. My team has pinpointed several pirate locations that have been active recently. We should coordinate our efforts accordingly," Kale declared, his expression focused. "Great. Let's start with the nearest location, then." Mark tapped on the console, displaying maps filled with strategic points. "This one here, it's set in some rugged terrain. We'll need a tactical team on the ground and some air support." Kale leaned closer to the holographic display. "That specific location is known for ambush tactics. I suggest sending a small reconnaissance team to gather intel before any full engagement. Surprises can quickly flip the tides of battle." Elena nodded. "I agree. It'll allow us to assess their numbers and defenses. We'll send in a team, then deploy our main forces once we have a clearer picture." "Good plan. I'll have my team ready to assist your ground forces," Kale said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. After discussing the intricacies of the plan, they ended the transmission, leaving Mark and Elena energized but focused. "Let's gather our teams," Elena said, finding her own determination rekindled. "We have a mission to prepare for." As they suited up, excitement mixed with apprehension. The camaraderie forged through their planning spurred them on. The crew of the Valor had been eager to try something different after countless days of conflict. "Are you ready for this?" Mark asked Elena as they stowed away their gear. "I am," she replied, meeting his gaze. "I know it's a risk, but if it yields results, it'll change everything." "You really believe that?" he asked, his voice cautious. "I do," she said firmly, feeling assurance rise within her. "It's time to redefine the narrative." As they boarded the transport ship bound for the target zone, the atmosphere buzzed with palpable energy. The crew members were exchanging glances filled with hope and uncertainty, yet they remained united in purpose. "All right, listen up," Elena called to the assembled troops as they settled in. "We're on a joint mission with our Zephyrian allies to take out a pirate nest. It's important we work together, communicate, and follow our protocols. Remember, teamwork is our greatest advantage." Mark circulated through the group, encouraging the men and women as Elena laid out the mission details. She scanned the faces of her team, seeking signs of trepidation or excitement. Just as she finished elaborating on their objectives, the ship's doors opened to reveal the rugged terrain outside. The air was hot and thick with humidity, contrasting sharply with the climate control of the ship. "Stay sharp, everyone," Mark instructed, positioning himself at the head of their entry team. "We'll move in quickly and stick to the plan." As the two teams, human and Zephyrian, formed a single unit on the ground, Elena felt a sense of kinship. Working alongside Kale's team, she noticed the fluidity with which they migrated through the terrain, their movements synchronized like dancers in a well-rehearsed performance. "Your teams operate smoothly," Kale remarked after they'd pressed deeper into enemy territory. "It's impressive." Elena smiled, appreciating the genuine compliment. "Likewise, you make it look easy." "Just wait until we engage," Kale said playfully, his expression brightening. "Then the true excitement begins." After a tense trek, they finally reached an overlook where they could see the pirate encampment below, a chaotic assembly of makeshift shelters and smuggling vessels. "Okay, let's split into teams," Mark instructed. I'll take the left flank with my squad. Kale, you take the right with yours. We'll execute a pinching maneuver while we gather intel before taking action. As they descended toward the camp, Elena felt a rush surge through her. This was not just a mission, it was the embodiment of what they had worked toward. It was surreal to think that humanity and Zephyrians, traditionally at odds, were now cooperating for a common goal. The team spread out, crouching behind rocks and trees. Elena and Kale positioned themselves together just outside the camp's perimeter. Stay low, Kale whispered, his eyes scanning the scene below. We need to assess numbers and any potential traps. Elena nodded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. I've got the left flank covered. You keep an eye on the right. As they observed, Elena's heart raced with each passing moment. The hair on her arms stood on edge, a mix of fear and exhilaration pulsing within her. Look, Kale pointed toward a group of pirates gathered around a fire, laughing and throwing around crude jibes. They don't seem too concerned. Good for us, Elena replied, forcing herself to breathe steadily. If we can take them by surprise, we'll have the upper hand. Just then, from nowhere, an unexpected shout erupted from the camp. Hey! What was that? Elena tightened her grip on her weapon, instinctively preparing for action. Here we go. Before she could finish her thought, Mark's voice crackled over the comms. Engage. Move in. Without hesitation, Elena and Kale sprang into motion, charging toward the encampment with their teams following closely behind. Gunfire erupted, illuminating the shadows of the encampment as chaos erupted. Elena, to your left. Kale shouted, diving into the fray. She dodged a pirate as he swung a weapon at her, narrowly missing. Adrenaline coursed through her as she returned fire, the sound echoing through the air. Get down. Kale pivoted beside her, taking out another pirate with precision. Stay focused. I'm right beside you, she replied, taking a breath and regaining her grounding. United in purpose, they moved through the chaos, their movements perfectly synchronized. Just as they began to overwhelm the pirates, a sharp cry pierced the air. Elena turned, her heart racing at the sight of one of her crew members getting pinned down. Stay low. Kale shouted, rapidly taking control of the situation. I'll cover you. Elena dashed forward to help her comrade, moving swiftly. We need to get him out of here. On three. Kale shouted back, setting a rhythm. 1, 2, 3. They both lunged toward their fallen comrade, dragging him to safety as more gunfire erupted around them. Vibrations of tension hung thick in the air as they pushed through, their teamwork more powerful than any fear. As they finally established control, Elena glanced at Kale, panting but exhilarated. We did it. We really did. He caught her gaze for a moment, the intensity glowing within it. And we'll keep doing it together. With the dust settling and the remnants of the camp now liberated, Elena felt an undeniable surge of triumph. They had not just engaged an enemy but had woven together a new fabric born from unity. Later, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, Elena found herself standing beside Kale, both of them taking in the aftermath of their success. What a day, she said breathlessly, feeling the exhilaration mixed with exhaustion. We pulled it off. We certainly did, but it's only the beginning, Kale replied, glancing at her with a warm smile. Thank you for standing beside me. Elena returned his smile, an emotion bubbling up within her. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't want anyone else by my side. Under the canopy of stars emerging above, the bond between them solidified, an unspoken understanding marked by shared experiences, trust, and something deeper that lingered in the air between them. They had faced adversity together and emerged stronger from it. And while the past loomed large, they knew they had just taken the first step into a future filled with the promise of collaboration. It was a future that allowed them to dance not just on the battlefield but in a shared rhythm of unity and purpose. Chapter 5, A New Beginning. The skies over the S.S. Valor turned a deep shade of indigo as night fell, stars twinkling above like distant promises. The transport ship, now docked and quiet, hummed with the aftermath of their recent mission. The crew was exhausted yet exhilarated, exchanging stories of the day's success as they began their debrief. Elena stood in the common room feeling the eclectic buzz around her. The air was thick with camaraderie and laughter filled the space as crew members congratulated one another. Captain, Mark called, waving her over. He was surrounded by a few crew members who were animatedly recounting the mission. You've got to hear this. What's going on? Elena asked as she approached, her curiosity piqued. It turns out one of the pirates we captured had some valuable information about their operations. More than we imagined, Mark said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. If we play our cards right, we could take down more than just a few rogue factions. Really? Elena leaned in closer, intrigued. What did they say? Apparently, they were part of a larger coordinated group that's been conducting raids across multiple systems. If we leverage this information with the Zephyrians, we could really make an impact, Mark explained, clearly thrilled by the possibilities. A voice came from behind them, breaking into their conversation. Are we celebrating today's success? Or are we focused on the next mission already? It was Kale, stepping into the room, his presence somehow commanding yet relaxed. Elena turned to him, her heart warming at the sight of him. I think we should do both, she suggested, glancing at her crew. We need to unwind after everything we've been through today, then regroup for planning. Kale smiled, the faintest hint of mischief in his eyes. I second that motion. Celebrating our accomplishments can be just as strategic as planning our next move. And how do you plan to celebrate? Mark asked, crossing his arms with skepticism but a hint of humor. Let's not overthink it, Kale replied, brushing off the question. Food, music, and perhaps a bit of dancing? Laughter erupted from the crew, and Elena caught Kale's eye, sensing a shared vision between them. Sounds like a plan, she said. We could really use the morale boost after all we've been through. All right, I'll arrange for something festive, Mark said, stepping up as the unofficial party planner. As he moved off to coordinate, Kale approached Elena. Shall we prepare a toast for later? He suggested, a playful gleam in his eyes. To what? Elena asked, intrigued. To our partnership, our success today, and to the future we're creating together, Kale replied, taking a step closer. Elena met his gaze, feeling the weight and meaning behind his words. I'd like that. Cheers to hard work paying off. The crew buzzed with activity as Mark organized food and music, laughter ringing out as various officers and crew members worked together. Elena watched the harmony unfold, people from two different worlds collaborating freely, no longer defined by their differences. It felt surreal to witness. Captain Voss, one of the crew called, breaking her thoughts. Are you ready for the toast? Absolutely. Elena responded, stepping onto a makeshift platform in the common area where everyone had gathered. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for your hard work and dedication today. We've taken a significant step toward forging a new direction for our future, she announced, her voice steady yet filled with warmth. Applause erupted around the room, the energy infectious. This success wasn't just about defeating our enemies but proving that cooperation can lead to real change. Kale joined her at the front, lifting a glass. To Captain Voss, brave and tenacious, who pushed us past our comfort zones and right into this new alliance. To Captain Voss, the crew echoed, raising their glasses in unified spirit. Elena felt her cheeks flush under the praise. I couldn't have done it without all of you. And I certainly couldn't have done it without our allies. She gestured toward Kale, who gave her an appreciative nod. To new allies, Kale added, holding up his glass. And to the possibility of many more successful missions ahead. To new allies? The crew repeated enthusiastically, their glasses clinking together. As the toast wrapped up and the party flowed seamlessly, Elena found herself at Kale's side. The atmosphere was celebratory and she could feel the weight of the day lifting from her shoulders. Care for a dance, Captain? Kale asked, a teasing sparkle in his eyes as music filled the room, adding a rhythm to the events unfolding. Right here? Now? Elena couldn't help but laugh nervously. Why not? Kale stepped closer, drawing her into the middle of the gathering. Let's celebrate properly. All right, if you insist, Elena replied, giving in to the moment as the crew cheered them on. The music swelled, and as they began to move together, Elena felt the rush of excitement and familiarity flowing through her. They danced, their movements instinctive, caught up in the rhythm. Laughter and cheers surrounded them, but it felt as if they were the only two people in the universe. You've got some moves, Kale, Elena said, a genuine smile lighting her face. I've picked up a tip or two from my companions, he replied, his gaze steady. But I must admit, dancing with a human is a delightful experience. Glad to hear it, Elena replied, her heart pounding, not just from the dance, but from the connection that was building between them. Let's hope our allies back home feel the same way. They will, Kale said, moving closer. Their feet nearly tangled, but they spun, laughter flowing between them. Unity can change the game. And it feels good, Elena admitted, swirling into him as the music slowed. She looked up, meeting his gaze. There was something in the air, something that stirred within her, an understanding of their growing bond that transcended words. Kale's expression shifted, sincerity shining through. Whatever comes next, know that I'll stand beside you. Same here, Elena replied. We're in this together. The world around them faded, the noise of celebration becoming a distant background. They stood there, locked in each other's gaze as the dance continued, the music enveloping them. And at that moment, surrounded by allies, laughter, and the pulse of new beginnings, they both understood this was only the start. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, heart and soul, navigating the unknown futures that awaited them. As the celebration unfolded and people cheered for their success, Elena and Kale remained intertwined in their own universe, igniting the dance of trust and possibility, a dance that would lead them into uncharted territories, bound by shared purpose and deeper connections.